Welcome back. Well, yes, we'll turn our attention now to the economy. How do we get it right? You know, there's been this talk about the cost of governance. Is also, they say, incredibly important for us to sort that part out such that the economy can then do what will benefit us all. The cost of governance. And we're joined this morning by Odili Oke-Nwagbara, who is an economist. He joins us from our studios in Abuja. Morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, haven't seen the way the economy is going, and then this recent talk about the cost of governance, how the executive, legislature, judiciary need to sort some of this bleeding as well, such that the economy can perform. You are an economist. Give us your perspective on all of this. Where do we begin to get it right, and how, with respect to the 3 tiers of governance?
Thank you for inviting me. First of all, the problem is that the country has not actually structured its fiscal and monetary policy in a way that will be growth-driven. So what we have had so far to date is externally generated revenue that is used in running the government. And for the past 3 years, I have been emphasizing the need for government to start looking inwardly. That is, internally generated revenue to be used for recurrent, and the externally generated revenue to be used for capital expenditure. Unless we do that, then government, be it the executive, be it the legislature or the judiciary, we have no incentives to actually make sure that the economy grows and develops. So what is happening is what is supposed to be happening. Especially recently, obviously, my good friend accused the legislature of taking a bulk of the recurrent. And to some extent, she's right, because it is the responsibility of the legislature to make the laws, including appropriation and oversight. So if they say that, okay, the executive is spending more, it means that they are allowing the executive to spend in excess, because they're supposed to appropriate and they're supposed to oversight. But having said that, at the end of the day, we will agree that our economy is still a small economy. And I've been saying, look, whether we like it or not, what that is being spent as recurrent, even though when you look at the percentage, it's about 68% or 70%, it's not actually big. Had it been we have grown our economy to a larger extent, then it means that what we are spending on recurrent is little or nothing. When you compare Nigeria as a nation of 170 million and compare it with the New York State that has a budget of 148 billion in 2013, where we have about $30 billion in 2013, you know that we operate in a small economy, and our recurrent is very small. But you see, why New York having $148 million dollars? Because it is a income tax generated and the corporate tax generated. But our own is allocation from external oil sales. So we must re-engineer our economy so that our economy will actually be growing, so that government can be generating revenue through taxation, not through allocation.
All right, before we come to that, I mean, some will ask, look, is that a realistic comparison to make? And how about comparing what we spend on our recurrence on the realities of our economy and the performance of our economy?
There's no doubt about that. First of all, when you make a budget, when every country makes a budget, it makes a budget with the hope of growth-based budget. But our budget has been consumption-based budget. So that's why there's no pressure to increase capital spending, because there's no pressure to get revenue from capital spending, because it is when you grow the economy through capital spending that you generate revenue. So, answering your question, I think at the end of the day, there's no way you should expect the economy to grow when there's no much investment in capital. That is in power generation and in roads and those infrastructure that we have to grow. And more so, as I have always said, you know, the real sector that is supposed to drive the economy is going bankrupt because of our monetary policy, which is making interest rate very high, which is crowding out the small businesses from actually getting loans from banks. Since banks are lending about 68% of their money to federal government. And unfortunately, the money is not actually borrowed for capital spending, but is borrowed for recurrent, because of recurrent deficits. So answering your question, I think at the end of the day, as I have said, we must leave this debate and go towards how do we grow this economy? How do we create jobs? How do we increase productivity? How do we increase the investment in the rail sector so that the economy will be growing, so that we grow the pile, and then sharing it won't be a problem?
You know, Mr. Okinwabara, a lot of Nigerians watching this morning will disagree with you, because if you say the actual expenditure of government, now we're not talking about the budget, is 82% of expenditure, that's the percentage now, and this goes to recurrent component, while just a paltry 18% ends up in capital expenditure. If you say we should get more, it means at the end of the day, if we don't sort this particular one out, then the more we get, the more we'll be spending on these and not putting anything for capital expenditure.